Welcome to the Flow State Podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Medallion, and today we have a very special guest, commercial real estate owner and business mogul, Mike Akroush. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
Of course. So tell us how all this got started. Tell us about the early years.
Well, you got to start from day one before I was born to impact my life and how it came to be. So my parents are of Middle Eastern descent. My mom is from Jerusalem, and my dad is actually born and raised in Jordan, Amman, Jordan. We're also a rarity. We're Catholic.
Right.
So, to sum it up, my dad came over. You know, they got married. He came over. She stayed over there. They couldn't afford it. You know, he moved in with his brother for a couple years. You know, worked his ass off, trying to make something of himself. His brother wouldn't let him. You know, these stories always hit home for me. He's like, we were well off overseas. I was spoiled. We had a driver. And he's like, I came here and it was ground zero for me. And I'd always say, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he's like, you come over in, spurts. He's like, so my older brother was here for 5 or 6 years. My dad's older brother, my uncle.
Right.
And he's like, he established himself a little bit, had an apartment. Then he brought me over here, to live that American dream. And he'd always say, I didn't know the American dream was that rough. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, for 2 years, he wouldn't let me own a car. He took me back and forth to work, dropped me off, picked me up, dropped me off, picked me up. He's like, I didn't see the light of day. And I was like, what? And he's like, I literally knew how to get to work and come home, and he'd take my paycheck. And this is the early 70s, by the way. And he's like, he'd give me $20 and he'd take the rest of it. And I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? And he's like, for 2 years, I was a busser at a steakhouse. And then in the afternoon, I'd leave and go work at a liquor store, stocking shelves, doing anything I can with very little to no ability to speak, the language. Burnout, he's like, this is crazy, what happened? And after about 2 years, I ended up saving enough that I didn't even know that I had a down payment to buy a gas station. So I went off on my own. I bought a gas station. I was 24 years old at this point. I came over at 22, his words, by the way, and still wouldn't let me have a car. He'd drive me to the gas station, drop me off, and then he'd go to his job. And then at night when I was locking up, he'd come pick me up, take me home. He's like, life was rough. He's like, but you don't learn to appreciate the finer things in life until you walk through it. You walk that path. And for years, he built, mom came over. They obviously had me. This is Los Angeles, California. And, what's she gonna do? So, housewife, raising us, me and my sister. He's still, 8, 9 years later on that same path. I don't have a lot of childhood memories with my dad until I was probably 9 or 10 years old, where he felt he was a little bit able to move and breathe. Mm-hmm. And even those memories are minimal. It would be going to church,
right?
And then he'd come home from church and be like, I got to go to work. Yeah. And he owned it's different when you're the owner. In my head, I'm like, I'm American raised. So, I always say I'm the barrier in my family between being 100% Middle Eastern culture and tradition and the American culture and the tradition. I feel like I got the best of it because I have the values that I love from my family, respect, take care of your elders, be front and center, and then taking the good values of the American culture. So I feel like I double dipped and got lucky, but he used to always tell me, nothing in life comes for free. There's a price on everything, be it loss of family, be it money, be it going to school and getting a degree that costs you money. If you didn't go to school and you learned life lessons the hard way, they cost you money because you never win until you fail. Right. The difference between a winner and a failure is the winner got up and tried one more time.
Yes.
So that was always instilled in me at a young age. once I got to be like 8, 9, 10, where I was more aware of my surroundings, on the weekends, he'd take me with him to work, and I'd sit in this gas station with him. I'd remember, he'd be exhausted fixing cars. We had a mechanic shop. It was a full service gas station. He's pumping gas. Back in those days, you pumped gas for people. It was a whole different, the mentality that we have now where, go pump your own gas, pay at the pump, dart whenever you want. That didn't exist. There was camaraderie. You had customers that you spoke to on a regular basis that became friends, So I would sit there and I'd watch that, and he'd always be like, are you watching? Do you see how to deal with people? You see how to, have respect for everybody, young and old? He'd always tell me, it doesn't hurt to have a friend, it hurts to have an enemy. Why make an enemy?
Right.
When you can always have a friend.
100%.
And he's like, putting a smile on somebody's face is free. He's like, the same amount of effort that you put into being upset is the amount of effort you put into being happy or being successful. It's just what direction do you want to take it in.
That's powerful.
So building into those values, and even at that young of an age, I was always with my family, like at my uncles, at my aunts, or the neighbors. Our neighbors became our family. My dad would always tell me when I first started working at the steakhouse, it was called Steak Corral. He always, to this day, it affects him. He's like, they'd say, bring me the butter churner. We had a thing, it had butter and sauce in it. He's like, I didn't know what it was. I'd go get him an ashtray. And he'd be like, no, the butter churner. He's like, I'd go get him the salt and pepper. He's like, that's how ignorant I was and how, he's like, I'd cry at night because I was so frustrated. And he's like, for somebody to call you a dumbass because you didn't know but you were trying. And he's like, at the end of the night, we didn't have food to eat. He's like, the leftover baked potatoes that we had, he's like, I'd take them home. And me and my brother would eat them dry, with just a salt shaker to keep our stomachs full. He's like, we suffered. He's like, it wasn't a free ride. Our dad didn't say, oh, here, I'm successful here. Here you go to America and leave me. He wasn't thrilled. He's like, so we had to make something of ourselves. That carried on into him actually starting to be super successful, probably from 1972 to 1982, my dad, I didn't know where he was, what he was doing, where he was coming, where he was going. I just knew he was always tired, always in his gas station outfit. I still remember it was Arco, American Standard, which is actually BP now. Okay. And he'd come home, take a shower, hang out with us for a half hour, eat dinner. And he'd fall asleep on the couch. He was so tired. He couldn't even make it to bed. I didn't register what was happening. I just knew he was a figure in my life that was providing.
Right.
And then we moved overseas. My grandpa was getting older. And, he's like, I want to see my grandkids, yada, yada, yada. So we moved up there for a year. I got to live over there and go to school over there and actually learn to appreciate America because there is no Kroger, there is no 24-hour supermarket. A bowl of Fruit Loops or Fruity Pebbles is non-existent. It was little mom and pop shops that were bays that they'd open up, sell fruits and vegetables. You wanted a chicken, it was a live chicken. You go to the chicken guy, he'd butcher the chicken in front of you, throw it in a bag, and you were on your way. Truly, it was an eye-awakening experience and culture shock to me. I'm like, what are we doing?
Right.
What just happened? And then me physically having to go to a school that was strictly Middle Eastern. And of course, I was raised in Los Angeles, so my Arabic ability was slim to none. I understood it, but I didn't speak it well. Right. So I would go to school, I'd go to a Catholic school during the day, and then I wouldn't come home. My parents set up with the teacher that I'd go home with her, and then she'd teach me Arabic lessons at her house. Over there it's very family oriented. So like everybody knew everybody and this teacher's going to take you. I'm like, what is happening? Right. It was really scary. It really was. It's honestly to this day kind of traumatizes me because we left there after a year and I never stepped foot back in that country for 40 years. I'd go to Greece, I'd go all over the world, but I never would want to go back to the so-called motherland of where my roots started, just because of how traumatizing it was to not be able to have the freedoms and the luxuries and stuff we take for granted in this country on a daily basis, taken away from you from the minute you land.
Yes.
You know, you have to watch how you speak, how you dress. Guys don't wear shorts. You know, girls don't wear shorts. It's a 98% Muslim country. You know, I remember going to the Catholic school and, you know, we always had our little gold chains with our crosses on them. You know, my mom used to always pull up the front of my shirt and tuck my cross in, and I used to always wear it just like I'm wearing my chains. Right. Gotta have it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was like, no. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, here I am 8, 9 years old. Like, I'm aware. I'm like, hey, we go to church every Sunday. I go to a Catholic school here. What is happening? And she's like, don't attract unwanted attention. And I'm like, what? You know, there's my American mentality. I went from having friends going to Pasadena Elementary to, you know, back to Pasadena. You know, I left, you know, we lasted a year. It was really hard over there. My grandpa at that time was in politics. He was the mayor of the city we were in and wanted to run for like governor or whatever they called it in that country, because they're different titles. And it was constant going to like meet people, shake hands in school, and it just burned us out. You know, very young sister, she's younger than me. So my dad just made the decision. We lost everything, you know, everything my dad built in that 10, 15 years, and probably equivalent to millions of dollars now at that time. It all went in 11 months over there, helping my grandpa with his, you know, campaign, give him this money, give him that money. So we literally borrowed plane ticket money to come back to America and start over again. So back to LA, ground zero again, here we go. Except this time I'm aware of what's happening. Renting an apartment, you know, living in a very small apartment. I'll never forget it. You know, it still exists. So when I go back to LA, I always make it a point to drive by it and see and feel. It grounds you. It really does. Like it shakes you a little bit, because now I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm not a child. I know what he's going through, and I knew what he went through now. And, you know, before we left to Jordan the first time, we were well off. I mean, at that time, I remember when we had a garage sale to move, I think we made $5,000 or $6,000 just in my toys, and that's in 1984. You know, think about the money in equivalent 40 years later, how much that was. You know, that's probably $30,000, $40,000 in toys. I had everything. I was spoiled, you know. Electric cars, Hot Wheels, you name it. It was all there. He-Man figures, anything I wanted, you know, was at my beck and call. Little go-karts. So now we come back, we have nothing. And I'm like, oh boy, you know. I thank God we moved back to the original city where we're from, which is Pasadena. I still had all my old friends. My cousins were still around me. You know, I remember my uncle having to pay our rent to get us up and running again, because we literally borrowed plane ticket money to get back here but that's the power of family. Mm-hmm. You know, you never succeed on your own. One hand does not clap by itself.
Wow.
Okay. You're as strong as the person standing next to you, the person that drives you, you know. And God love my uncle, you know. He's still alive today. He's, you know, I'm not going to let you fail. You know, he'd tell my dad that in Arabic. I brought you here once and you succeeded. Nothing's changed. We just go back to square one. And we do it again, and we build. Once you have the recipe for success in life, it's on you. You know, you're bound to fail. Failure is a result of success, and success is a result of failure. They go hand in hand. It's the clap method. You know, you're never going to know what it feels like to be successful if you don't fail.
100%.
It's a lesson you have to have. And I feel is essential in growth in a human. If you don't know what pain feels like, how are you going to judge it? If you don't know what it feels like to be hungry, how do you know when you're full?
Wow.
Okay, like it was really traumatizing. So back again, my dad's working for my uncle now. My uncle owns that liquor store that my dad's working at again. And, you know, mom's raising the kids. Again, here we go. One car. You know, my aunt would take us to school because my mom didn't have a car now. We went from having 7 cars and a house and the whole 9 yards to literally nothing, no furniture, nothing. Build. California, obviously everybody knows, very expensive state to live in.
Yeah.
My mom looked at my dad one day and she's like, hey, how about we move to Ohio? All my mom's side of the family lives in Ohio. All my dad's side of the family lives in California. I don't have any overlap. They're either all here or all there. So we made the move. Here we go, start over again. This time I'm even more aware of what's happening, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Moved in with my grandparents right when we first moved here in Fairfield, Ohio. There's 8, 9 of us in a house. Like, what is happening here? Thank God, my dad came. My mom's family, outlying family and intermediate family all owned Gold Stars, and my family started, my mom's side of the family started the company. My dad started working what he knew at a gas station, and him and my uncle, my mom's brother, partnered up and actually ended up buying that gas station. Like, hey, let's buy it. Again, this is the early 80s, so the amount of money, I tell you, doesn't sound like it's a lot when, for a down payment, they came up with $5,000 to put down on this gas station on Route 4. It was a Chevron station, had a little mini mart in it, nothing fancy, just a tiny market and a bunch of gas pumps. And one would work day, one would work night, no employees, him, my Uncle Terry or my dad, It was back and forth, so they got to see their families. He'd be like, okay, you work daytime today, I'll work at night, and then I'll have dinner with my family, you'll have breakfast with your family. And for years it carried on like that. And then they bought a second gas station. I'm still young, I'm in middle school, watching my dad start over again. We bought our first house on Kingsmont, in Fairfield, 2 streets down from my grandparents. And again, thank God for family. Very tight knit. My other Uncle Joe lived 1 block away. My other Uncle Frank lived 1 block away. Literally, you can walk in a big square around these blocks, and one of us lived on every block. So, the stability of having the family near you, me still culture shocked by, California, Middle East, back to California, to Ohio. I felt like I was a military brat without the military, but like family military. Ambition in my head, I'm like, I don't ever want this to happen to me. It's already, I don't want to say scarring me, but impacting my life to the point like, my sister's 3 years younger than me. I'm like 13, 14, right away. My dad's like, that first summer, we moved here in February. So I started in the middle of the school year. Didn't have any friends, where the hell I was at. I went from sunshine and rainbows to cold weather and like, where are we?
Right.
And trying to establish that very summer, my dad's like, you're working. I'm thinking, great, I'm going to work with my dad. My dad, you're not working with me. You're going to go work with your uncle. Well, my Uncle Joe was very strict, but with love. I remember that first day, that summer, my dad's like, you're going to work Monday through Friday. He picks you up at 8, you come home at 5. I'm like, okay, what is happening? I'm 13 years old. I'm like, all right, so Saturdays for you to play with your friends, Sunday's church. He's like, you're working all summer. Don't even ask. Get dressed. That very next day after getting out of school. So I'm getting dressed. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I got to work with my uncle. He's a father figure, had, the oldest brother in my mom's side of the family. My grandpa obviously is the patriarch, and my Uncle Joe's a representation of my grandpa, and we take that very seriously in our culture. You are your kids are you. How if your kid's bad, you're probably raised in a shitty environment. I hate to say it like that, but like, you are what you surround yourself with.
100%.
I go to work with him, a lesson I will never forget in my life to this day, and I still tell this story, and I think I've even told it to you at the barbershop. You get out of the car, he owned the Gold Star Chili on Route 4 in Fairfield. I'm 13 years old. He's right when he gets out the car. Now my uncle has, backstory on my uncle. My uncle has polio, so this man has worked on one leg his whole life. It was through his whole body. They managed to get it down into one leg. So his whole life he's worked with one leg braced and on his feet in restaurants. Very successful, proud of him too. And so I go in, back door, first day, I'm like, all right, this can't be that bad. I grabbed the broom and dustpan. Everybody knows what the broom and dustpan is. And back then, you used to be able to smoke in restaurants, cigarette butts, you just tossed them out. There was no awareness of littering. And he's still standing outside smoking a cigarette. I come back out the back door and I got my broom and dustpan, and he's like, no. Like, calm as can be, he's 6'2", he's not a small man, you're very intimidating stature. And he's like, go use your hands. What? He's like, clean the parking lot with your hands. I sat on the curb. It's 8:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh no, I'm too above this. In my head, I'm like, why I have a broom and dustpan? It's not registering to me.
Right.
He looked at me again. It's like it was yesterday in my head. And he's like, you sit out here until this parking lot's clean and pick it up by hand.
Wow.
And this was a big old parking lot. And there was cigarette butts everywhere.
Yeah.
Bottles, cigarette butts. And I pout. I still remember, I actually cried a little bit. I'm like, what is happening? Why is he being mean to me? What? I cleaned the parking lot. I ended up mustering up and I, sucked it up. I did it. I came back in. I was this busboy. They didn't have a dishwasher. I was the dishwasher. 3-compartment sink. You wash it by hands. I still remember I'm barely tall now. I'm not even tall now, but I'm reaching over the sink trying to wash dishes. He's making me pick through bags of beans that are dry to make sure there's no rocks in them because we cook beans fresh, 100-pound bags. And at the end of the day, I get in the car with him. He drove his little Mercedes, and I'm huffing and puffing. It was a bad work day. First day, I'm like, man, I don't want to come back. He's harsh, yada, yada, yada. And I remember, again, he put a cigarette in his mouth, and he looked at me, and he's like, out of the side of his, turned his head, and he's like, do you know why I had you do it by hand? And he's like, I know you're upset. My cheeks were red. It was hot. I'm like, no. I could barely talk. I'm scared of him, out of respect, not. And he's like, you'll never learn humility if you don't start at the bottom. He's like, you'll never appreciate that $1 that's in your pocket, even though it's one, if you don't know what you had to do to get it. You'll never know the value of it. You'll never know what it's worth. He's like, $1's worth as much as a penny, but you don't see it that way, because if I handed you something, he's like, if I just told you to go up in there and start working and give you a fluff job, that $1 means nothing to you. It has no value. For 3 summers, I did that. I was only allowed to get $50 a week. That's what my dad allowed him to pay me. He's like, you can only pay him $50 a week. I don't care how many hours he's working. He needs to know the value of sweating and working and what it means to actually have a job. I learned that lesson really quick, and I think that was the foundation for me that made me realize, 1, don't ever be ashamed to do anything to support your family.
100%.
Ever. 2, hang on to every $1 you have, because no matter how much you have, it can be gone in the blink of an eye. And 3, respect everybody around you, make connections in life, and appreciate the people that add value to your life. So I went on through my high school. As I'm in high school, I'm buying vending machines, making money. My friends are like, I'm selling candy at school. I became an entrepreneur. Literally, by 9th grade, I'm blow pops, sweet tarts, now-a-laters. I'm coming home with $50 to $100 every day selling candy. I'm already in that mindset.
Yeah.
Even to this day, my cousins that went to school with me would be like, you probably still have your first $1 from when you were in school, because I was always money motivated and money driven from being scarred, kind of scarred because of how I got to where I got, but learning that I needed to build something for myself. So I turned 16, I got to buy myself a BMW with my own money. My friends were like, how do you have that money? Well, for 3-4 years, I've been filling vending machines. We used to go to Sam's and Kroger and buy cans, and I'd stock my machines. Back then, it was 50 cents for a Coke. My dad let me put one at his gas station. I remember my grandpa had a Gold Star. He let me put one in front of his restaurant. I'm building $3,000-$4,000. You know, I remember taking that money and my dad's like, okay, we're going to invest it in buying Kroger stock. Best purchase I ever made. I still have that stock. You don't want to know what it's worth. You know, from 1985, you know, I think it was at like 50 or 60 cents a share back then. And I had $3,000 in cash. I remember I'd hold that money all the time and I'd be like, oh. And then my dad handed me those, you know, the stock papers, like, you know, here's your first investment in life. I was 14. You know, I'm 48 years old now, going on 49. So there's the business sense, you know, in my head already instilled in me that I don't want to be hungry like my dad. Yeah. I don't want to starve. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, you know, witnessing living in a foreign country and learning to appreciate where I was born and raised that much more, with that much more opportunity.
Right.
You know, the biggest downfall of naturally born Americans are they feel like they're owed something. Nobody owes you anything. You owe it to yourself.
100%.
Okay? If you fall, you fell. Get up. Dust yourself off. The true sign of a man is not the fall. It's the get back up. It's the one extra step between failure and success.
Yes, sir.
Okay? It's, you know, don't look at what happened to you. It's not, oh is me, oh God. It's, what do I got to do to get back to where I need to be? Okay, and whatever path you take, there's no shame. From sweeping streets, you know, to cleaning toilets like I did and becoming a busboy and filling pop machines, it made money. It was a different venue. I wasn't, you know, Donald Trump owning real estate. I had my own path at that moment. Fast forward, I'm 17, 18. I go to college. I was always a leader. I always marched to my own drum. That was, again, instilled in me at a young age. And I always had an idea of how I wanted to live my life, but no clear path on how to do it. It was just, I knew I needed to make money. I knew I needed to save it. I knew I needed to invest. 3 good qualities to have.
Yeah.
Okay. But how was I going to do that? Well, from years of working at, you know, Gold Star, you know, I had a job in high school where I started working at a men's suit store. I quickly grew from, you know, I'd go to high school, I'd leave high school, my suit would be in my car, and I would drive straight to my job at Tri-County Mall, and I'd be selling suits. I knew nothing about selling suits or clothes, but I knew I had the gift of gab and the ability to build bridges and camaraderie with people. All of a sudden, I'm the assistant manager of this place. And I wasn't coming into work till after 3 o'clock every day because I was in high school. You know, one day I'm at the suit store and a gentleman walks by with his wife, you know, nicely dressed. I'm standing at the front of the store. They always call it the lease line, right in front of the mall. And I was like, oh, you look good today, sir. You know, nice suit. And I was like, why don't you come on in? Let me show you some stuff. Gentleman happens to walk in. You know, we're going back and forth talking about life and business, and I'm pulling out suits and I'm trying to make sales. This guy ends up buying, I'm 17 because I wasn't even legal to work what the next step was. He spent $10,000 with me. I sold him suits, socks, ties. I mean, pocket squares. I'm like, oh, you got to have this. I'm adding on. I'm selling up.
Right.
You know, I also worked on commission, so I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm like, he buys everything, leaves. You know, I don't think anything of it. I'm like, wow. You know, my manager at the time, you know, he's patting me on the back. He's like, man. He's like, you're just hungry. He's like, you're always hungry. I'm like, yeah. I was like, you know, again, in my mind, if you're gonna do something, why give 50%? If I'm here to do the job anyway, I'm going to give you 1,000%.
Run it up.
I'm here regardless.
Yeah.
I'm running it up.
Yeah, for sure.
If I'm going to make the best of my situation, no matter what it is. Okay, and that's another thing we lack as a people in this country. We feel like, oh, he should help me. He owes me. He should do this for me. Why? Give me a good reason why, and I will. Make me make sense of it, because nothing was handed to me,
right?
And there ain't nothing handed to anybody in this world unless you're generational wealth, and you know, then you really probably don't appreciate it, and you end up losing it anyway.
Exactly.
So, I'm selling suits. A couple days goes by. All of a sudden, I see the guy coming back. I'm like, oh, he's going to return something. Great. He walks in and, I'm obviously in my suit. I'm decked out to the nines. I love dressing up. I'm like, I'm tip to toe, got my Crocs on. This when Gators were out there, flossing. And he goes, son, can I talk to you? I'm like, oh, man. So I go over, I'm like, oh, how you doing? His name was, not to air him out or anything, but it was Jeffrey Lazaro. He was the president and owner of Rogers Jewelers at that time. Well, I didn't know. And he looks at me, he's like, young man, I want to tell you something. And I was like, you want more suits? Came right out of my mouth. And he just smiled and he looked at me and he's like, in my lifetime, I've never known anybody this good at selling other than me. And he's like, you're the first. And he's like, I want to hire you. I still didn't know who he was. I'm like, hire me. I'm like, I'm killing it over here.
Right.
I'm number one in sales in the store. They promoted me. I'm 17. I'm an assistant manager. I'm on top of the world in my book at this point. And he's like, well, I own Rogers Jewelers. He's like, the store 2 doors down. He's like, I was actually here visiting my stores with my wife when you got a hold of me. I'm like, sir, I don't know nothing about jewelry. I was like, literally nothing. I was like, I just know that my birthstone is an emerald and I know what a diamond is. And I was like, real vague, you know what I mean? Like everyone knows what diamonds are, but doesn't really know what a diamond is. Mm-hmm. He goes, my district manager is actually in this other store. I had him come out. He's already here. Can we step out and, have a drink with you, in the food court? I'm like, I was getting ready to take a break anyway. I'm like, okay. I still have no clue where this is leading. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, all right. So I go out, God rest his soul. His name is Wes Martin, was at that time, ends up being a really good friend to me, a really good mentor. And we're in the food court and we're sitting there and, the 2 men in suits, obviously way older than me. I'm 17, mm-hmm. My dad always taught me, sit up straight, always look somebody in the eye, you shake their hand, firm grip. And I do that. We sit down and he's like, Michael, this is the regional manager. He's like, he's insisting I hire you. He's like, do you have any experience? I was like, I have sales experience. Obviously I'm selling suits. I was like, sir, I don't know anything. I was like, literally, I can walk in that store. I know nothing. And Jeffrey's sitting, they're facing me. It's almost like scary, like an interrogation. Yeah. And he goes, young man, he's like, you're going to end up being the best salesman I have in this company, if not more. And he's like, I'm so damn confident in it. I don't care what you know. We'll teach you. Okay. And at that time, I'm 17. They don't know that. I didn't know you had to be 18 to work in the jewelry store. And I'm like, he's like, we're going to pay you $18 an hour. I'm 48, so take 30 years off of that. This is what, 95 or 90?
That's a lot of money.
Not a lot of, I'm like, oh, I'm balling now. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I didn't even negotiate yet. You know what I mean? I'm like, do I even say anything? I was like, man, they're paying me. And he's like, we'll give you 3% commission on top of that. And then you have insurance. I don't know anything about insurance and 401k and a cafeteria plan and 10 sick days. And they're rolling out this package at me. And I came for a 15-minute coffee. I still got to go back to work. Yeah. Okay, they're hitting me. I feel like I'm getting punched by Mike Tyson. I'm trying to register what I'm taking in. I just say, okay. I'm like, hey, growth opportunity. In my head, I'm like, how am I going to turn down $18 an hour? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm ready to call my mama, run back to the store. Mom, He's like, when can you start? Obviously, I'm brought up where you just don't walk out on anybody. I was like, sir, I have to give them my 2 weeks. If they don't want me to work my 2 weeks, I'll start tomorrow. But if they want me to work my 2 weeks, I can't do it. So, and he's like, I respect that. He's like, again, I already know what you are. Mm-hmm. I go about my day. I go back. The next day, Wes Martin comes back in. I'm in the store working, hands me the paperwork. I fill out the paperwork. He looks and he's like, you're only 17? I'm like, yeah. He's like, when are you gonna be 18? I'm like, in a month. I'm like, May, it's April, I'm over. And he's like, you have to be 18 to work in a jewelry store. I was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, again, I'm like, bro.
You guys came to me.
Yeah, like I have no clue. You didn't say that when we sat. You were hammering me with this deal.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, work your 2 weeks. You'll only have 2 weeks to be able to come back in there and work. He's like, we'll just put you on training in the store for that 2 weeks. You know, we'll just keep you off the floor. I'm like, okay. He's like, you obviously have suits, you know, in the jewelry store. We had to wear a suit back then. It was suit and tie. And so I do that. And next thing you know, I'm selling jewelry. I went in for training. I wasn't training. I was selling. I was already in there just building rapport. And they're like, you know, hey, you like this? And they're like, I don't know what I'm selling. You know, they'd be like, oh, I want to see a pearl. You know, I'm ignorant again, 17. I'd look at my manager at that time. His name was Tony Walker. I'd be like, Tony, pearls. He'd be like, that case over there. That's how I figured out what I was selling. And, you know, I knew what a set of earrings were or a necklace, you know, that's dumb, or a bracelet. And I'm like, oh, what are you looking for? And I would always just build naturally, just talking to people, you know, Tony, I need to ring this up. He's like, you don't even have an employee number. I'm like, none of your other salespeople came out here to do it. You know, this is my first day supposed to be training. It's like an $800 sale. A lot of money back then. Again, now you buy something for $800, it ain't nothing. But he's like, you sold all this? I'm like, yeah. He's like, the whole set? I was like, well, he came in for earrings, but I was like, you should buy the whole thing if you're gonna buy it. It doesn't make sense just to get the earrings. Get her the bracelet and the matching ring and necklace. And he's like, you just said that? I'm like, yeah. I was like, isn't that what you're supposed to say? In my head, you know, you're talking to somebody, even if it's my boy or my friend. Yeah. I didn't relate it as a sale. Like, you know, if I'm going with you and you want to buy something for your girl, you know, your wife, I'm like, hey, you're buying her the ring. You might as well get her the bracelet and the necklace. Exactly. You know, that's nature to us as humans. You know what I mean? You go buy a car, you know, I'm looking at a Camry and they're like, oh, this is the low model one. It has roll up windows and power line, you know. I'm like, you might as well get the one with leather interior and the sunroof. Yeah, exactly. That's me being your boy, like, bro, if you're going to do it, if you're going to do it. So that instinct was built in me, like, be hungry. If you can afford to get more and you're able to do something more for somebody, why wouldn't you? Not just in selling something, but in life in general. That lesson has multiple facets to it. Give everything when you're going to give it, or don't give anything at all. Period. Right. Okay. If I come into play, I come in to win. You know, I did jewelry for 10 years, built a really nice nest egg, lived with my parents, never moved out. You know, I gave up college. I'm like, man, I'm making too much money. You know, I'm 20 years old making $100,000 a year. I ain't making that with a college degree. You know, and plus I loved sales. It came naturally to me. You know, I ended up becoming the youngest manager in the history of that company. I also had the highest increase in the company for a store in a single year in the history of the company. Again, that was ignorance to me because I just thought naturally you're supposed to sell stuff. I didn't care about a sales goal, or I cared that when that person walked in, it was my job to help him find what he needed, be it in life or be it a piece of merchandise or be it a business. You know, it's programmed in me to be successful. I don't know any other way. Failure is not an option. Yeah. Okay. And again, life's lessons from the past. I ain't living like that. Right. I ain't ever gonna live like that. You know. And you know, we failed again. Don't think my life story's all smooth and roses from there. You know, I did the jewelry thing for years, and I decided that hey, I've always been a leader. I want to work on my own for myself. I purchased my first gold star. I saved up $60,000, $70,000, and I put a down payment on having my own restaurant. You know, I went back to my roots, gold star. So I had a gold star from 2012 to from 05 to 2012. You know, I had my own store. And then as I'm working that store, I'm saving money, building. I always had a passion for cars. You know, everybody as a kid had posters of cars they wanted, a Porsche or Corvette, whatever it is. So I started a used car dealership with 50,000, and here it is. I'm thinking growth. I didn't give up on the business that I had. I just realized that was my foundation on how I'm going to be what I want, and it's going to come from this.
Right.
So my dad's like, "You're doing great. You know, I'm proud of you." You know, I was always the black sheep of the family, let's be honest. You know, my life's lessons don't, you know, in between all that, I had a kid in high school. That's not part of our culture. You know, I was the black sheep. They never thought I was going to amount to anything, but I was always hungry. I always wanted to eat. My stomach was never full. You know, the failure part in between there, my parents lost everything, had to start over. You know, there's no worse feeling in the world than watching your house being auctioned off on the courthouse. You know, I'm standing at the courthouse steps and our house is being auctioned off. They sold all our, you know, we had to start over again. You know, was my dad upset? Yeah. Was he upset to the point that he let it bring him down? No. He's like, we've done this before.
Right.
We good. Don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. I was worried about it because now I'm way more conscious. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh no. Okay. And he's like, you know, he'd always tell me, failure is one step away from success. We're good. My mom crying, you know, here we go, back to ground zero, start building again. I've got my restaurant, I've got my car lot. I turned that car lot, you know, it went from 0 to 100 because one, I had the passion for it. 2, I love to sell. And, you know, it was intriguing to me, you know, to say, all this is mine. You know, I rented a lot. I found a lot, paid $600 a month in rent for it, and I only had 50,000 total. So that was my first month down payment, and then that was the money I had to buy cars with. Wasn't a lot. You know, you're buying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 cars. You're only going to have like 6, 7 cars on a lot that holds like 70 or 80. You know, I turned that 50,000 into $500,000 in a year. Gradual growth. You know, everything on the lot I owned. I didn't take a loan for it. All the titles to the cars were in my safe. So I was free and clear of debt, but it was my nest egg. I risked it all. All of it. You know, you always say, when do you know when to gamble? You know, when to gamble, when not to gamble. When do you want to grow? When don't you want to grow? You grow when you want to grow, but just make sure you have a backup plan. And when you decide you want to grow, make sure it's something you're passionate about, because, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm arrogant, but I don't fail. I never lose. You know, I border on arrogance when I say that. You know, I've taken businesses that were literally about to shut down and turned them around. But that was a belief I had in me and in myself and in the people around me that I knew I couldn't do without them being around me to make me better, to help me grow.
For sure.
You know. So, you know, my life continues on. You know, I got a car lot. I got a Gold Star. I got married. You know, family life starts. And, you know, get rid of the car lot, get rid of the Gold Star. You know, I'm having a little bit of health issues back then, stress, a lot going on. I got businesses everywhere. I'm chasing my tail. And I just thinned out and got rid of everything. And an opportunity comes up literally after the first month of me so-called just like getting out of everything and just trying to recenter myself. A pizza place comes available, and my wife at the time is like, you got to take this. And I'm like, I haven't. Doctor was like, he don't want me doing anything. And, you know, I'm having panic attacks, stress. And she's like, this is meant for you. I know it. I know it. So, okay. And it really was. You know, I went in and looked at it that Monday, that Tuesday, I had it. It literally was an overnight deal. Like within 24 hours, I had the keys and I was in that place, never made a pizza in my life. No idea what I was doing. You know, I learned it on the swing. You know, I already knew how to run a restaurant, operation, a whole yard, but I didn't know nothing about the food, where they were getting it, how to make it, make my own dough, make my own salt. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, oh my God. Again, in my head, I don't fail anyway. I'm good. You know, we negotiated the lease where the guy gave me a month or 2 to get on my feet, which was nice, no rent, you know. Started again, day and night. I'm in there day and night. You know, nobody's going to care about your business as much as you do. You know, even now in my life, with the businesses I have and the businesses I've had, the minute I step away from it and I leave it in somebody else's hand, it's not running the same. Even if they're super good at what they do, they don't care like you do. Mm-hmm. They never will. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you don't nurture what you're trying to build and feed it and, you know, help it grow, it's not going to grow right. You know, it's going to collapse at one point or another.
Right.
So, you know, Arabic culture, mindset of I have to be successful, mindset of I'm an entrepreneur, I really can't work for people. It's not built into me to be like that.
Yeah.
You know, the freedom of having my own opinion and how I do things is what made me successful. And I feel like it is who I am. It's the fiber of how I operate my day-to-day life, being a good man, being honest, being hardworking, being trustworthy, you know, having people have faith in you.
Right.
You know, God above, you know, I never mentioned that and I should, but, you know, being faithful and praying and knowing that, you know, nothing's going to be put on your shoulders that you can't carry in this life.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, you may think you're down and out and you're being kicked while you're down. Believe me, buddy, if God didn't think you can carry it, it wouldn't be there.
Right.
Okay. And I learned that lesson the hard way. And, you know, I went through a point in my life where I was like, you know, I'm going through a divorce. My life's unraveling. I pretty much gave up. I'm, you know, back at home with my family and, you know, I was sulking. And that's not who I am.
Right.
You know, I thought I let my parents down. You know, that's our culture. You know, you never let your parents down. You always want them proud of you. You know, that was the most impactful thing in my life was I'm a reflection of my dad. You know, my dad's name's Ike. They don't call my dad Ike. My dad's name is Abu Mike. Abu Mike translated means the father of Mike. Okay. In our community, they never say, oh, hey, Ike. They say, hey, Abu Mike. Guess what? If I'm shit, when they call him Abu Mike, that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm driving in the car with him one day. I'm quiet. You know, everything's unraveling. I'm like, what in the hell happened? And he just looked at me and he's like, hey, he's kind of pissed. You know what I mean? Like, he just was tired of seeing me like this. Mm-hmm. I lost like 30 pounds. I'm miserable. You know, like, Jesus, smoking cigarettes. And he goes, you know what? He's like, can you change the end outcome being mad? Just out of nowhere, blurts it in the car. It's like 7 a.m. And I was like, what? You know, I'm in a foul mood. And he's like, can you change the end outcome? I'm asking you a question. Look at me. I turn around and he's like, you being upset, is it fixing your problem? I'm like, no. You know, excuse my language. He's like, what the fuck are you upset for? And it was like an epiphany went off in my head, like ding. He's like, if you being mad changes the end outcome, go put yourself through a wall. I'm good with it. He's like, but you're sitting here telling me whether you're pissed off, happy, sad, whatever your mood is, it's not changing what already happened. What are you pissed for?
Right.
He's like, I ain't raised you like that. He's like, I raised you to dust yourself off and get up and do what you got to do. He's like, this ain't no different. He's, you know, I went from millions and I got everything under my fingertips to nothing. And I've watched it happen to my dad and watched him recover over the years again and again and again. So I did, you know, that conversation, he's like, you're my son, I'm proud of you. And I know what I raised. And he's like, that ain't it. So your salt job or whatever you got going on over here, it's got to go. We ain't having that. So get up, dust myself off, took what little money I had, bought a piece of property. This is how I roll into real estate. You know, markets crashed at that time. Everybody remembers that. Houses are foreclosed on. They're everywhere. They're empty. You know, you'd go a year and the house right next to you is vacant for over a year. You're like, what is happening over here? Like, you have no clue. They give it to you if you were willing to take it. I remember I bought my first property. I think it was like $8,000 or $9,000. Hamilton. I had 30 grand at that time. So I put 8 of it into buying this place. And in my head, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm still doing the Gold Star thing to keep some income coming. Bought my first house, paid 8 grand. I literally invested the other 22 grand into remodeling this place. I literally had just enough to remodel it. Okay, so I got 30 grand into this place. I'm broke. I'm living paycheck to paycheck at this point. I put everything, all my eggs in one basket. Here it is, right there. Proud of it. It looked phenomenal. I go and list it on the market. It brings, I think I sold it for like $55,000. Like 2 days, it was sold. I'm like, I just made $25,000. I almost doubled my money. Like, damn. I'm in my head. I'm like, ooh, this is good. Didn't know what I was doing. I knew I was a good leader.
Right.
I knew I can delegate, divide, get people to, help me out. Did this thing, got my 55 grand, I'm thrilled. My dad's like, what's the next one? I'm like, what? He's like, you doubled your damn money. He's like, you didn't make that in a year. You made that in one sale. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, hell yeah. Bought another one. Took all that money, never spent any of it. The key is don't touch that money, keep living paycheck to paycheck. And keep that nest egg thriving. So feeding the nest egg, bought another one. This time I spent a little bit more. I think I paid like $16,000 for this one property. Put the whole 55 in. It took that much. It really needed it, I think I sold that one for like 79,000. Made another 20 grand. I'm like, oh man, now I got 80 grand. I started with 30. I'm 3 months into this endeavor. It took me a month and a half on each house. And I'm at already almost $80,000 from 30. So I made 50 grand in 3 months. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm balling. Again, still young. You're talking back then. Okay. I'm like, this is very lucrative. Wow. But again, the market was flooded with vacant houses. It's capitalizing on what somebody thinks is a downfall. The rich get richer because when the stock market crashes, they don't sell. They walk in and buy. They see it as an opportunity to grow. Oh, Kroger stock went from $80 a share to $10. Instead of people, my mentality, your mentality, the general population is like, oh, I got to get out while I can still get some of my money back. These guys are like, oh, hell no. Buy it up. What goes down must come right the fuck back up.
Yep.
Okay. And the same thing with real estate. In my mind, I'm like, people need a place to live. It doesn't matter, So I'm still doing that. I'm buying, I'm flipping, I'm buying, I'm flipping. I get to the point where, I laid out my life plan or my goal. My goal was to own these properties and start renting them out. Well, I didn't have enough capital to own them and rent them out and still be able to flip. So I needed to build a certain amount of money to get to the point where I could still flip and rent and collect money.
Right.
So for the first year and a half, I was just building, flipping. And then in my mind, I already had my goals set out, where I wanted to be, how far along. You got to put that in your head. You got to know where you want to end up in this thing. Mm-hmm. And an opportunity came up. I found a 4-unit complex. I think I bought it for like 80 grand. It was a shit show. Okay. I put 80 into it. Okay. I'm 160 into a building that, in my opinion at the time, is worth $300,000-$400,000. I'm like, okay, now I got 4 units, 4 garages with it, washer and dryer, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, all 4 units. I'm like, this thing can generate me some money. And I got such a good deal on it that I'm like, hold on, I got like $200,000 in equity in this thing on top of that. So I rent it out. It's bringing me $3,000 a month in rent. Literally, it was $3 grand. That's how much it was bringing me. And I'm like, how do I make more money from this thing? I wanted to juice it for every penny it could make. So I'm like, I'm gonna put coin laundry in the garages. So these people there's no room for washers and dryers. These were older buildings that just rehabbed. So I put coin laundry in there. All of a sudden, that's generating me an extra $10,000 a year in quarters. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of money, but 10 grand is 10 grand. That's an extra almost $800-$900 a month. That was another apartment rental, in my opinion, that washer and dryer. Mm-hmm. I kept that one and I'm like, oh, okay. My payment on that piece of property, I think, was like $800 or $900 a month. It was generating me $3,900 with my coin laundry a month. So I was clearing $3,000 a month. I just brought in $60,000 a year. Do the math. 3 times 12 is $36,000 a year in passive income. That's free money.
Right.
Okay, that's what you want in life. I call it mailbox money.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you want to be able to sit at home and let your mailbox work for you. Okay, that should be the goal of every human being. To do as little as possible to get as much as possible. Your time is valuable. Everything you do in this life costs money. Time is the most valuable thing you have in the world.
I agree.
You never get it back. You don't know when it's over. So invest your time in people that make a difference in you. Invest your time into something you're passionate about. Invest your time in your God, in your kids, in your family, because nothing pays greater dividends than those things in life. Nobody's a bigger fan of you than your family. Nobody's going to walk through fire with you like your family. And when I say family, it could be friends. Who you consider family, blood makes you related, but it doesn't make you family. Those people that supported you when you knew you couldn't walk without, putting your hand on their shoulder, take care of those people, because they're the ones. I read this book and it said, you want to know who your real friends are? Go belly up and see who's standing next to you. End up in a hospital and see who shows up. Then you know who's real and who's there for you and who wants to be there. Go broke and see who puts $1 in your pocket and say, I believe in you. Those are the people you want to nurture and take care of and grow with and take a journey in life with, because you get one shot at life. When you go meet your maker, you don't get to say, hey, I didn't get to live it the way I wanted. I've told you this before. You don't get no redos. So you got to live with no regret. You got to give everything you have when you are here.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're going to live with that scar the rest of your life. Whatever time you have left, as you get older, you're going to slow down. It's always going to be in your head. What could have I done different? What should have I done? I should have did this. Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah.
No, bro. Your opportunity is here right now. You want it, go get it. You don't, that's on you.
Right.
But don't tell me I should have. No, you could have. You didn't.
Right.
I always, talking about the car thing, I always wanted a Ferrari. That was my dream car. I have a picture of it, 8, 9 years old, hanging on my wall. Everybody had one of those pictures, a Lamborghini, Countach, a Ferrari, a Corvette. That was my goal. Subconsciously, you're not thinking about it, but even as a kid, even now, you're a grown man. You don't have a dream car you've always wanted since you were a kid?
Yeah.
You probably have it off memory.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what color I want.
Yep.
I know what car I want, even if it's an older model. I always wanted a 79 Trans Am, Smokey and the Bandit. My dad had one as a kid. I remember my dad used to ride me around in it. To this day, it's not the most expensive car in the world, but it's one of the cars that I've always wanted, that I want, that I haven't gotten yet. I've gotten more expensive cars, but my unicorn is a car that's like 15 grand.
Yeah, my dad had a Trans Am with the bird on the front.
Yeah, that's the one I want. Smokey and the Bandit with the bird on the hood and everything. Gold or black with the bird on the hood. T-tops.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm smiling ear to ear because those memories as a child in that car with my dad, with his cowboy hat on and his Trans Am jacket, we're riding around the neighborhood. They're priceless. There's no 100%. Value on that.
Yeah.
Again, that's a goal I have. That's something, I want to achieve. Once you hit that goal, I don't want to say I would lose interest in it, but then I already had a higher goal. I was like, I bought that Mercedes.
Yeah.
I'm like, great. Literally within a month, I'm like sitting in the garage. I don't care. I'm driving my Acura MDX.
Right.
And I got $1 million car in the garage. Like, who cares? It's not about the money. It was never about the money. You got to realize in your life, it should never be about the money. It should be about the goal.
Yeah. What can money do for you?
Yeah. Okay. Because guess what? If you hit your goal, the money's already attached to it.
For sure.
Okay. Don't look at the money. What's my goal? What do I got to do to hit this? It doesn't involve dollars. It involves steps.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what people don't realize. They're like, how'd you make your money? I didn't make money. I had a goal on what I wanted to do. That was just attached to it. That was the bonus.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I was passionate. I became passionate about real estate. I'll tell you what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about people, and I'm passionate about cars. You know, those are things that interest me, that I have a true love for. I love cars. I love being around people. You know, my girlfriend now always tells me, you can't be alone. You know, I can't sit at home by myself and just hang out, and I got to have people around me.
Right.
Always. I thrive on that. That's my energy. You know, I feed off of other positive. I keep positive people in my life. I keep good people in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're not a good person, no disrespect, I still want you to eat. You're just not eating at my table. You know,
yeah.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I'm proud of you. Whatever you choose to do in life,
right,
go for it.
Right.
But you're not my cup of tea. I respect you. I respect what you have to say, but I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I always mean. You can't be negative and like shoot somebody down just because it's not what you feel is the right thing for you. Maybe it's the right thing for that person. So again, I want you to eat. I don't care who you are, what you are. If it doesn't fit my mold and who I am, my circle's like this big, bro.
Yeah.
I keep good people in my life.
Right.
I have
to. Environment's everything.
You know, good connections. I know if I pick up the phone and call you and I need something, you're there at the drop of a dime. Mm-hmm. Without you even telling me. You've never even said that to me. I already know. You don't need to tell me.
Right.
You pick up the phone and call me, Mike. Hey, when? Where?
Right.
All right, let's go. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's how it should be. Those are valuable connections. I used to always push you. I'll never forget when you worked at the barber shop. You know, you're the new barber there. You're cutting my hair. I'm like, get your own shop. You got to do your own thing. We had a lot of life conversations in that chair. Priceless to me.
Right, same.
Okay, priceless to me. I want to see you eat. And from where you were then to where you are now, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Day and night, bro.
Thank
Day
you.
and night. Okay, you took that path. You didn't let it stop you. I remember you saying, you know, my dad's having a harder time. You know, I'm doing this. I'm just getting started. I saw the twinkle in your eye. You had a vision. You already had that vision from the moment I met you in that barber shop. Okay, I recognized it. And I'm like, yeah, he's going to do something. Mm-hmm. You know, there's people you look at and you know they're going to do something. There's people you know that are going to whine and cry and think they're owed something.
Right.
You know, I don't owe anybody anything.
Not at all.
You know, I want to be the creditor. I want people to owe me. You know, like he helped me a lot. You know, I'll never forget that guy. Mm-hmm. Now I'm talking about money.
Right.
You know, just when I was down, he gave me a pep talk, or he came up and said, hey, how can I help you? What can I do different?
Right.
You know, you okay? You know, you're upset. You're my boy. Is everything good? Mm-hmm. You know, the conversation is priceless.
Right.
Wise words, there's no value on them. You know, somebody telling me somebody telling you you're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. I believe in you.
Right.
My dad telling me, hey, I raised somebody different. I was down and out, buddy. I was, they were counting, the referee was at 9, and I was about to give up, and he was like, no, that ain't you.
Man.
That ain't you. You know, burned and etched into my brain forever. You know, you're my boy.
Yes.
I ain't raised that.
Yes.
You know, actually making me feel stupid in a way. You know what I mean? Like, what?
It's not who you are.
Yeah. He's like, this ain't you. I didn't raise this. He's like, if this is what you are, I did a horrible job raising you. He's like, because I didn't raise that. Again, epiphany, like boom. It just took those words to say, hey, you made $1 million already. Go do it again, dummy.
Right.
You know, literally, he's like, go do it again, dummy. He's like, you already have the steps that you took on how to do it. You're miles ahead before you even, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like you already know how to do it.
Yeah.
What's stopping you from doing it again?
Right.
You? He's like, the only person stopping you is you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then you I built a real estate. You know, you also got to remember, you know, lessons cost money. Back to square one. Okay, I got burned on properties. You know, nobody held my hand and taught me. It was like, okay, little by little. You know, I took the information I had from people and started building, and I was fairly successful. There were some I lost in, but I call those lessons. That's how you learn.
That was your college.
Yeah, that's college. That's life. Life is college.
Yeah.
You know, it costs more actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And You know, I strictly at that time was buying single family homes, you know, flipping them, good money, flip, good money, flip, good money. I was killing it. The market was so soft, you could steal stuff. And then, you know, I go to the bank and I'm like, hey, I want to get a line of credit. You know, I'm going to do big things now. And culture shock. The bank president at the time's like, what's your portfolio? You know, I had a couple houses. I'm thinking I'm big shit. I'm like, yeah, I got 2-3 houses. They're all paid for. I owe nothing. You know what I mean? They're just bringing in income. And he looks at me and he's like, what do you have in commercial? I'm like, what? He's like, I see you got a couple residential units and you're bringing in good money. He's like, you know, good job. I'm 24. You know, I'm thinking I'm killing it. You know, I mean, I'm 24. I own real estate.
Right.
Outright. Like, I ain't got no loan. I'm like, bro, I ain't got no loan. Who you talking to? Driving a Mercedes. I don't give a shit. And he's like, good lesson. He's like, when residential is doing really good, commercial is doing really bad. And he's like, I'm talking in terms of rent. He's like, so son, you need a balanced portfolio. I'm like, what? He's like, you got to have both. He's like, because one has to cover for the other. He goes, never in the history of this country have both been good together. If commercial properties are really, really busy, that means nobody wants to rent. They're all buying. He's like, if commercial is doing bad, everybody wants to rent because they can't afford to buy. Ooh, life lesson. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm not good. Again, I'm thinking I'm great.
Right.
Here's another life lesson. He won't even give me $1. And I have money in the bank. I got properties paid for. And he's like, you need to go buy a piece of commercial property as fast as possible and leave the residential alone. He's like, don't quit flipping. He's like, but you got to offset. He's like, you have no offset. He's like, right now, when you bring me your books and you as a consumer wants a loan, he's like, you're top heavy. He's like, you have too much on one side and not enough on the other because I need to know I can get my money back from you.
Right. Collateral.
Yeah. He's like, your collateral's weak because if the housing market crashes, I'm screwed, not you, because I gave you the money and you don't have anything to bring that money to cover it.
Yeah.
So it's starting to register to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, so, you know, I leave, tail tucked in between my legs. Dad's with me. He's like, man, he's like, I didn't know that was going to happen. You know, so I'm like, I got to come up with a plan. One, I don't know nothing about buying commercial real estate. I'm buying single family homes and, you know, small multi-unit, 4-unit, 6-unit, duplex. I'm still in my infancy. I'm like, what am I going to do? Oh God. What do I don't know what's a good deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I have no knowledge on this whole different sector of this business because I purely focused on one thing.
Right.
So my dad's like, well, we have some knowledge. He's like, we own restaurants and we own the property. He's like, that is commercial. I'm like, yeah. I was like, that's a single unit. That's like buying a house. This is it right here. This is my baby. I'm like, I don't know how the leases work. I don't know what rent should be. I don't know what to charge per square foot. I don't know how I give it to them. Is it vanilla box? Do I build it out for him?
Right.
I don't know the zoning laws. I have no clue if he's allowed to have a sign or not. I was like, there's a lot. You know, do I shovel the parking lot? Does he shovel the parking lot? I know on commercial or residential property, you know, you rent something out, it's your problem.
Right.
You got a plumbing issue, you call me, I send somebody to fix it. You know, this was a whole different ball game. I had, you know, you're not taking a 1-year lease like you are when you're renting something that's residential.
Right.
This is 5-year leases, triple net this. Yep. I'm like, my head's spinning. I'm like, what in the hell did I just get myself into? My dad looks at me and he's like, hey, we're going to go see our attorney. My dad's good friend is a lawyer and he handles this type of thing. So we go sit with him just for knowledge. And he's like, Ed, I want you to sit with Mike, kind of like give him a little feeler on what, you know, just a basic understanding. You know, this guy's been doing leases and commercial property for 30 years. He's in Milford. So he sits with me and we're talking just like this. Yeah. You know, and he's like, oh, how you been, Mike? You know, we're going back and forth. And I'm like, the bank shot me down. I'm still in shock. Like, I got like 100,000 in the bank. I got like $20,000 a month in income coming in that's clear. I'm like, they're gonna give me whatever the hell I want. I'm like, I'm good.
Right.
You know, and again, this is early infancy. This is 24 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm riding high at this point. Mm-hmm. Somebody comes out and shoots your kite. All of a sudden your kite starts rolling down slowly, you know, just as far as shock is concerned. And he's like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna sit down and set a game plan, me and you. He's like, I'm not gonna give you the ins and outs. You're gonna tell me what you wanna do, and I'm gonna tell you how we're gonna do it. So I'm like, bet. And he's like, well, what's the story? I told him, I was like, hey, the banker said I'm too heavy this way. And he's like, he's right. He's like, you are. He's like, but I understand you don't know nothing about, you know, real estate is not always just real estate. Just because you know something about one division of it doesn't mean you're an expert in the other. Right. It's a whole different ball game, buddy. Mm-hmm. He's like, here's what we're gonna do. Again, I don't fail. I'm still arrogant in my head. I'm like, I don't lose. I'm like, bro, we're gonna do this anyway. You know what I mean? We're gonna figure this out. And he's like, you're gonna start with something small. You know, here's the criteria you should be looking for. And he's telling me, you know, you want something frontline ready. You know, he's like, you know, again, I don't even know what to charge. All this is new to me. A house is a house. 3-bedroom, 4-bath. This is what they normally go for. Here you go. You know, if something breaks, call me. I got you. You cut your own grass, you plow your own snow. You know, and he's like, if you do a strip center, you know, you want to start small. You know, you want something 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. I'm not registered. I'm like, I ain't buying houses that are 4,000 and 6,000 square feet. I'm buying 1,500 square foot, 1,200 square foot. You know, I'm like 6,000 square feet in my head. I'm like, holy shit, that's huge. Yeah. You know, I'm like, what?
To you, that's a mall.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm literally sitting like this. I'm like, what? Oh my God. And he's like, you know, that's probably 2 units, maybe 3 if you divide them out, 1,500 square feet each, if that's what you need. And he's like, you got to get this type of tenant. And my head's spinning. I'm like, I got to go get tenants. They don't just come and put for rent and somebody shows up. And he's like, yeah, sometimes. He's like, but you want like a national tenant. He's like, the bigger the tenant you get, if it's a corporate guarantee. I'm like, what's a corporate guarantee? You know, he's like, you know, he's telling me, you know, you want Domino's in there. You don't want Joe Schmo's Pizza. Mm-hmm. He's like, you know, you want Subway, not, you know, John's Sandwich Shop. Right. So that's individual. He's like, you know, when you start getting these national tenants and they give you a corporate guarantee, which I found out was that if the place belly flops, the corporation will pay the remainder of the lease regardless. Mm-hmm. They're guaranteeing that money versus somebody like me that's an individual. I don't have a corporate guarantee. If I belly up, I'm bankrupt and locking the doors and you're out 4 or 5 years of rent and you got to start from square one. He's like, these companies will guarantee all that money even if they leave because they're so big they can afford it. And he's like, plus it adds value to the property because you're not buying based on what the land is worth. You're buying off a cap rate, meaning however much this. I'm like, what's a cap rate? Again, they're throwing stuff at me and I'm like, so I don't buy it based on what the appraisal is. He's like, yeah, but you're also buying it when they do the appraisal, they'll say, we want to see your leases. And he's like, based on what income that's bringing in, you buy the business or you buy the property based on that percentage of income that it's bringing in. Mm-hmm. 7 cap and 8 cap, you know, if it's bringing in 8% of the money, you add that to the value of what the property, and he's like, I'm flipping my head. I'm like, what is going on? So we had that 2-hour meeting. He's teaching me. I left spinning. Literally, I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. You know, how am I going to get all this together? He's like, I'll help you. He's like, don't worry, we'll start looking together. He's like, just if you find something, send it to me. Let me look at it. I'll look at the listing. Again, back then those listings were paper. You know, we're going 24 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm bringing them a listing. It's like the old school MLS with the picture mm-hmm. and what is this and what is that. I'm like, you know, I'd go over to Ed. I'd see him once a week. I'm like, hey, take a look at these. No. I'm like, why? I'm like, I like them. You know, in my head, I'm like, it's everything you told me to look for. 4,000 to 6,000 square feet, front line ready, you know, on a main road. I'm like, doing it. And he's like, no, not good for you. No, not good for you. Too high, too expensive, not a good lead. I'm like, man. Long story short, you know, we end up finding something and it was a blessing because it took me a while because he just kept on, no. Like, I'm like, man. You know, when he found the right one, he's like, now I'm going to show you why. You know, when he found the one that, well, I found it, but like he agreed to, like was good, he said, now come here, sit right beside me. Don't sit on the other side. And he's like, look at this, look at this, look at it. He's pointing out stuff. And he's like, see this bottom line number? He's like, all that comes out of this. He's like, what's left over? I was like, at that time, it was like 50 or 60,000. He's like, that's yours. He's like, everything else you were sending me, I didn't want to tell you yet. He goes, but I saved a couple. He's like, look at these payments. This is what these are set in stone. These don't go away. Property tax don't go away. The payment on the building for what they're asking doesn't go away. You know, the overhead on this building because it was run down doesn't go away. You have to figure in a number. You got to put a base number on repairs. He's like, depreciation doesn't go away. You know, he's like, what's your bottom line number here? I was like, negative. It was literally negative like $4,011. He's like, that's what you would have made.
Negative?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, to upkeep it, you know, I was looking at stuff that I can afford. So a lot of it was run down, a little bit more worn out. I was thinking, hey, I can skate away with it for a year or two, let it be the way it is, and then dump money after I save a little bit. And he's like, no, he's like, if it's frontline ready, that's a representation of you. You can't leave it like that.
Right.
He's like, that's not an option. He's like, you know, one of them had a bad parking lot. I'm like, I could patch it up, like let it get. He's like, no. So again, a valuable lesson, and I don't want to lose. Again, back to my arrogance. I don't lose. I need to win. But I was shot down repeatedly. I was getting clipped I'm like, man, and they were good properties. He's like, Mike, the ones you brought me are good properties if you can buy them in cash. Because then you have no overhead and you can invest in fixing that and it didn't cost you anything.
Right.
Then you're making that rent clear. He's like, you have to borrow for this. You got to account for that payment. You got to account for 20% vacancy. He's like, all your places are not always going to be rented.
Nope.
You know, he's like, did you account for that? I'm like, no. He's like, well, you should. He's like, you know, he's like, always mathematically 20 to 25% vacant just in your head, even if it's not.
Yeah.
He's like, do you have rainy day money if that spot's vacant and you don't have enough to cover the payment that you have to put out of your pocket and still pay the property tax and pay the insurance and pay the liability insurance and fix a leaky roof or fix an HVAC or, you know, somebody, God forbid, hits your building, which has happened to me. Okay. He's like, you're not accounting for all that because you don't know any of that. He's like, now what you found has minimal repair, great location. It is a little bit more expensive. He's like, but we haven't negotiated yet. And it's generating money. He's like, right off the bat, the bank's going to look at it and be like, well, this guy's going to make 50 grand a year regardless. So you got to make it look pretty on paper. And it looks pretty without me touching it. And he's like, that's what you want. He's like, I see your vision. He's like, I know what you do. You rehab houses. You're thinking in your head, I can buy a fixer-upper, fix it, put money into it, do this. He's like, commercial work doesn't work like that. He's like, unless you have a nest egg to do that because your payment is not going away. He's like, you could put a tenant in there and tell them, oh, I want to paint the place for you. They don't care. You know, I'm going to put a new roof on there. They could still live in it. He's like, that doesn't work that way in commercial. He's like, they need to be operational full time. You can't shut down their heat and air conditioning. You know, if it goes in the summertime, you're like, oh, I want to put a new HVAC unit on there and it's 90 outside. And these people depend on customers walking in and out where that's a home. They're good. They can handle it for a day or two. He's like, you got to change your mindset on how you're looking at something. So I built that empire doing that. Buy a piece of real estate, rent it out, let it establish itself. If it's, you know, the key is get it paid down. I wasn't rich. And then I piggybacked off it. I bought the first one in cash. It was paid for. I borrowed on the first one to pay for the second one. Once I established the second one and it was up and running and it was bringing in rent, you know, it was paid for. You got to remember, now I only have a loan on one property. The second one's paid for because I borrowed on the first one that I paid for in cash. Yeah. So this one right here cost me nothing. Didn't cost me nothing. I paid for in cash. I have added value. This property cost me 90 grand total as an example. It's now bringing in $3,000 a month in rent. My payment is only $900, and then the washer and dryer bringing me another $900 a month from all those units. So I'm clearing $3,000 a month. I'm positive $36,000 a year out of this property. Don't buy the Porsche, buy what's gonna buy you the Porsche. Okay, you don't go look for a car, you go look for a property that's gonna pay for the car.
That's deep.
Okay, so then this is paid for, this is making positive flow. I want another property. I've established this, you know, this isn't overnight. You know, I had a year of getting it going, establishing rents, renting it to the right people that I know are going to pay. You know, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you got to do. You got to be patient. So a year went by. This is established. I'm bringing in $36,000 a year. There's no money on it. Banks love that. You go to the bank now, you know, you want to buy another property or borrow against it. They're like, oh, what's owed? I'm like, nothing. They're like, how much does it make? It clears me $36,000 a year. Oh, fantastic.
Right.
How much you want? I was like, what's it appraised at? He's like, oh, it's appraised at 240. Well, it only cost me 90. And it already brought me 36,000. So take that off the 90 I already invested into it. I'm down to 57,000 that property actually cost me at that moment. He's like, it's worth 240. I was like, I only want 200. I kept 40,000 in equity in the place. I took that 200, bought my next property, built it up, established it, rented it out. Guess what? Now this is bringing me 36,000 a year. This one's bringing me 50,000 a year. I've now have a supplemental income of roughly $90,000 a year, and my total debt on the two is 200,000. Because I still got 40,000 sitting here. It's paid off. Well, it was paid off. This one's paid off. So this one's free and clear. This one I owe 200 grand on, but the properties combined are worth over $500,000.
Right. And you're making, like, you'll be able to pay that off in a few years.
My total investment's 57,000. The bank gave me the rest.
Yeah.
But they're generating positive cash flow. And when somebody sees it, they're like, well, you still owe 200,000. I'm like, I owe 200,000 on two properties appraised now at over 600,000.
Right.
I'm like, and my investment was only at that time 57,000 because I got 36 back already.
And that's good debt. You'll pay it.
Yeah. You know? And I'm like, that's positive cash flow.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm still making 90 grand a year. I was like, don't forget, I'm making this payment. I'm still clearing 90 grand a year. I was like, you do realize that, right? I was like, that 90 grand didn't go anywhere. The rents that I'm getting between the two properties are still coming. I'm paying down my debt at the same time, and my mailbox is getting fatter.
Yep.
And then you just carry on that same step. So you take that step. Now you know this property, you know, I'm 200 grand into this property. I know it's worth like 450, 500 with the income that it's bringing in now and how nice it is. You know, it's a 4-unit, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, I got 200 in this one. You know, it's paid off. I got 200 in it, but it's paid off. All my debt's right here. You know, I'm still at square one with debt. I owe 200 right here. We're money on this one. This one's bringing in way more money. I go back to the bank. I'm like, hey, what do you think this one's worth? Oh, it's worth 450. No sweat, conservatively. I'm like, I like conservative. Let's keep it conservative. You know, in my mind, I'm already looking for new property. I found another one. I'm like, well, I only need 300. He said he'd give me 450 on this one. I was like, I just need to borrow 300. And he's like, well, I can give you up to the 450. I was like, I don't want the 450.
Smart.
I just want the 300. He's like, okay. I've already built a great rapport with this one. They see it's making money. Now he sees this one's making money. This is 2 years into it. I'm on my third property. Again, I'm taking it step by step slow because I don't want to burn what I'm stepping on yet. I want to make sure it's established. It's making money. I know what it's costing me. I know what my overhead is. I know what my property tax is. I know what my insurance is going to cost me because all that comes out of the rent. You know, at the end of the day, everything comes out of that. So I bought my third property. It's in Hamilton. Same deal. Stole it. You know, the market's bad. You know, 3-4 years. We were longer actually. Like what, 6-7 years? The market was crap. Bought that property. You know, all my friends are like, man, that's a piece of shit. What are you doing? Yada, yada, yada. You got to see beyond. And you got to have the vision. So I'm like, don't worry about it. Okay. You overpaid. Who in the hell would pay that for this? In real estate, what's expensive today is cheap tomorrow. Okay, you may think you paid a premium today, but have it reappraised in 5 years and tell me what it's worth. And they tell you you're a genius. The guy that told you you're a jackass today, in 5 years will tell you you're a genius, because that's exactly what happened to me. I bought this property, it was historic. I'm like, what am I doing? Oh my God. I didn't realize there was more red tape with historic stuff. I'm like, what am I getting myself into? Now I'm buying multi-unit commercial. So once it gets over 4 units, it becomes commercial rental. So I'm still on the commercial retail side. Now I'm buying multi-unit apartments. I went balancing, buying a couple of strip
Portfolio.
centers, little stuff. And I'm like, well, I can still buy residential. It just didn't hit me that I had to buy way bigger. Like it has to be 6 unit, 10 unit, 12 unit, whatever. I paid $500,000 for this property, biggest purchase of my life. I'm like freaking out. We do the work 1 building at a time. It was 2 buildings. It was 6 unit and 6 unit. Fixed them up. It took a year and a half. I did the 1 building first, left the rents on the other one to pay, raised the rents on the new building, moved new people in, or allowed the people that were in the other building. I'm like, hey, your rent is not, I'm just using a number. Your rent's not $400 anymore. If you're moving to the new ones, they're now $900. Because we gutted them. I mean, floor to ceiling, everything. New appliances, new counters, new cabinets, new plumbing, everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we want that. So logistically, I'm making in 1 building what I was making out of 2 buildings from the 1 building because I doubled the rent.
Yeah.
But that's all it was worth when I bought them. They were garbage. Okay, fix the second side. So now you do the math, I'm making 4 times what I was making by investing into fixing it. I'm $500,000 invested. I'm still in the green about 75, 80,000 a year off those buildings. Okay, they're making me that. I'm already making 90. Now I'm making 170 a year. So now my mailbox money is now up to 170,000 a year in income. I don't have to work anymore at this point. I'm like, man, I'm making 170 grand a year and I'm just going to my mailbox and going like this, taking the check out. Now it doesn't sound like it's that easy because don't get me wrong, you evict, you throw out.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
That 20,
But you're not physically working.
I don't have to physically work. Yeah. I'm still hungry, bro.
Yeah.
My stomach ain't empty yet.
Yeah,
or ain't full yet.
Yeah.
And then I had that property. A year goes by. The same buddy that told me I got screwed when I bought it. He's riding with me one day. I was like, oh, I got to stop by this property and pick up the rent. He doesn't remember the conversation. I do. I keep score. We stop. I'm on Park Avenue in Hamilton. Get out. He's like, I'll wait in the car. I'm like, bet. Go in, get the rent check, come back. And, he's a real estate guy too. Mixed with the same crowd, the same drive. He's very driven. I love him. And he's like, how much you charge in rent for these things? I'm like, oh, anywhere between $900 and $1,100. This is 25 years ago. That's a lot of money. That's equivalent to $2,200 to $2,500 a month right now. And he's like, you get that kind of money out of these? Kind of like culture shocked. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I gutted these. I was like, you don't remember these? He's like, no. I was like, remember you told me I was a dumbass for buying these? Because they were shit. He's like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I remember when you brought me to show me them, and I thought you were senile. I saw what I wanted. He saw what he wanted. Okay. He's like, how many units are there? I was like, 12. He's like, let's just say the average is, I was like, they bring 12 grand a month income. He's like, are you shitting me? I'm like, no. He's like, you can get that kind of rent in Hamilton? I'm like, bro, they're really nice. I'm like, they're really, really nice. I was like, I spent money on them. I was like, I'm $500,000 invested in this property. I bought it for $240. I put another $260,000. That's a lot of money. Again, at that time, that was the biggest purchase of my life, period.
Yeah.
Even over a house. I didn't even have a house that expensive. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm like all in on this thing.
Right.
Did the landscaping, fixed the parking lots.
Yeah, you went all in.
All in. I saw one of your questions was like, when do you know to throw all your eggs in one basket? When you believe it. It's your belief in you that you can make a mountain move.
Yes.
Okay. Small, quick story. I'm sure you probably heard this before. 2 shoe salesmen, they're twin brothers. They sell shoes. They go to Africa. Both are there to sell shoes. One brother sends a letter saying, why the hell am I here? Nobody wears shoes here. The other brother sends a letter saying, send me as many shoes as you can. None of them wear shoes. Right.
It's all about perspective.
Okay. One brother's perspective was like, I'm going to be rich here. The other brother was like, get me the hell out of here. What am I doing here? You got to have the mindset you can change anything you want. You can do anything you want. You can drive anything you want. It's up to you. Not up to anybody but you. Nobody stops you but you.
Right.
You hear excuses all day. Nobody stops me but me. I stand in my way all the time. Don't think I'm not living on easy street right now. I'm going through trials and tribulations in my life. It's hard, okay? But every day I wake up, I brush myself off. Today's gonna be better. I'm gonna grow from this lesson. I'm gonna achieve what I have to achieve no matter what. Nobody's gonna tell me no. You have to believe in yourself first. You have to be a leader. You have to surround yourself with good people. You have to have a vision. You have to act on that vision. You can't talk about it and not do something about it. If you're gonna walk the walk and talk the talk, then you're gonna have results. If you're just gonna sit there and tell me about it all your life and 20 years later you're still telling me the same story, guess what? You want cheese with your wine? Because it ain't working.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, no. Show me an action plan.
Right.
How are you going to achieve this? I achieved something that at the time I wanted to do it, I wasn't capable of doing it. But I had an action plan on how I was going to get to that first step.
Right.
I may not be able to reach the first step right away, but I have a plan to get to that first step.
For sure.
And life is baby steps. You don't say, you don't go 0 to 100 in one jump. You say, okay, I want to make $100 today. You make $100 a day, you're doing good. If you clear $100 a day in this world, that's $3,000 a month clear. That's after taxes, after everything. And then I'm like, well, that's not enough. I want to make $200 a day. I want to make $6,000. How do I get to that number?
Right.
What do I have to do with my ability, with my skill, with what I know, what I'm capable of doing? Where's my niche? What slice of the pie do I fit into? Or what slice of the pie do you want to fit into?
Right.
Where do you want to go in life? What direction do you want to take? There's people that always say, I don't want to name names, but they're like, oh, I listened to Tony Robinson and I listened to, this motivational speaker. Buddy, if you have to listen to somebody to motivate you, okay, you're not motivated, period. Because nobody motivates me but me.
Right.
Okay, and my loved ones and the people I care about their opinion. My girl, my parents, my daughters. People that are in my ear want me to succeed. When somebody comes and tells you the brutal truth and you may not like what you hear, just remember they were family and they were man enough to tell you.
Wow.
Okay. Don't get upset at that person. They're trying to make you better. They just told you the honest truth and you may not like what you hear, but it might be a reality call and you might need that push.
100%.
Always believe in that.
Yeah.
Always believe in that. Your true friends are going to tell you what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Because the guy that just pads you along and says, oh, you're doing great, good job, my boy, is not the guy that's there when you fall.
Right.
Okay. You know who's there when you fall? Your real one. The one that was like, I told you don't do that because I love you. I know what it was going to lead to. I told you you're better than that. Do this. And at that point in your head, you're like, oh, I resented him when he said that.
Yeah.
But no, he was being real with you. Good friends, sometimes it involves having shitty conversations and a hard look at yourself because remember, they're not telling you to harm you. They're telling you to make you better. You may not like what you're talking about, but he was real enough and man enough to step up to you or she, say, hey, that's not what you should be doing.
Right. Just like your dad did with you.
Yeah. It was a hard conversation with my friends, with my families, with my, business partners, with my girl. My girl pushes me every day. She'll, what are you going to do today? You going to be better? You should do this. You should do that. That's somebody in my ear wanting me to grow. Right. Hey, I know you're down and out. I know you're going through a lot in your personal life.
Yeah.
But you're better than that.
Yeah.
I respect and appreciate and love her for that every day because she's pushing me out of my comfort zone. Because I got comfortable being stagnant for a minute. No. That's not the Mike I know.
Right.
No. It's not the Marshall I know.
No.
You know what I mean? You gotta and rely on people. There are good people in this world.
100%.
Rely on your friends. Rely on the ones you think are real. Life is nothing but tests. Every day is a test on what you're going to do, what you're going to be, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, what you believe in, what you don't believe in. If I want to own 1 million McDonald's, ain't nobody telling me no. The only person telling me no is me. You just got to figure out how you're going to do it. If you want to own all the car dealerships in the world, if you want to be a president of a company, if you want to sit on a board of directors, you want a podcast, only person stopping you is you.
Right.
I ain't telling you no.
Right.
And even if I tell you yes, you're still the only person stopping yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to want it, and you got to be good at finding people that are around you. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm smart enough to know who I need to hire and who I need to attach myself to make those goals. That's what you want to be the smartest in. I'm good at making connections with people that have the like mindset of what I want to be. If I want to do videography or I need somebody to do this, I know I'm not an expert in that, but I know somebody that is.
Delegate.
Yeah. You need to be able to surround yourself with like-minded people that have the same drive, that add value to your life. Not to your business, to your life.
Yes.
Because this is a life lesson. This ain't a business decision.
Right.
Life is a business. Okay. So put good people around you. Put people that have the same mindset, the same growth opportunities, that have a fear of God, able to grow, willing to risk it. Because life is a risk. Every day I wake up, I don't know if my time's done. That's a risk. I drive out of that parking lot. I tell my girl I love her. I tell my parents I love them. I don't know if I'm going to get to point B. My life can be over in 5 seconds after I had that conversation. That is a risk. Every day you wake up, it's a risk. Every day, I always tell people who are like, how's your day going? 90% of the time my response is, I woke up and I touched 2 feet on the ground. I'm good.
Yes.
I can fix everything else. I was like, but if I'm not here, I can't fix nothing.
Right.
I was like, I'm already positive. I'm good. I woke up.
Yeah.
Everything else is water under the bridge. I fix it. I'm good. I have that belief in myself. That's that arrogance thing again. I'm like, I can't fix it if I'm not here.
Right.
I can't take care of my daughter if I'm not here. I can't take care of my parents or my wife, whoever it is.
Yeah.
You got to be here. There's people that rely on you every day. Your steps have actions. Not everybody realizes that. You can't be selfish in life. You now have kids depend on you, a wife that depends on you, employees that depend on you, parents that depend on you. It may not be every day, but it's most of the days.
It is.
Your dad calls you, wants something or needs help doing something. The wife calls you, the girlfriend calls you, kids call you. Dad, take me to the basketball game. Dad, can you buy me these shoes? Dad, can you take me? I want to go to church and do this event. That don't happen without you.
Yeah.
The key word is you. If you're not here to do that for them, they lost, not you, because you go and you meet your maker. You're now with God. You're in paradise. You're not suffering anymore. Everybody's always like, oh, we lost him. No, he's not suffering. Right. He's with his maker. We lost because we lost that soul that we had available to us.
Wow.
It's gone.
Right.
We have that saying in our culture, in Arabic culture, the person that lost is not the one that died. He's not in pain anymore. They lost because they're the ones weeping and sobbing and mourning.
Yeah.
He's celebrating. He's with his Christ.
Yes.
Because we all want to go meet our maker.
Yes.
My dad always says that. He's like, my grandma, short story, it's touching. My dad's mom passed away. Arabs are super dramatic. We cry and the women are screaming, oh, we lost her. Just, you're not supposed to drink. They don't wear makeup. They're in all black, and this is like a 40-day process. We mourn for 40 days. The 3rd and the 9th day, the bones unravel like Christ and their spirit. We have church services for all that. And we don't drink. You're supposed to be sad. And I remember, they told me, hey, grandma passed away. I'm crying. I lived with her for a year overseas. I'm probably the one grandkid that spent the most time with her out of the ones that lived in California. My dad had 15 brothers and sisters. And my dad goes and grabs a bottle of scotch and they're watching my dad. They're all trying to comfort him and pours a drink and sits down. Well, we don't do that. You're supposed to be suffering and mourning with that person. And he looks at my uncles and my cousins and he's like, anybody want a drink? Yeah, he was upset. You know, he was sad. And they're like, what? You know, again, I'm young. I'm like, what? And he's like, hey, he's like, I'm having a drink. I know what our culture is and everything. He's like, but this is not a culture thing. I want to have a drink. I want to celebrate my mom. I know that's not what we normally do, but it starts different here. Looked at my uncle, was like, you want a drink? You don't want a drink. You know, they're all like, oh, nobody does that. You know, we're fed into this mold. You're supposed to suffer, you know, be there for days. They literally just roll into your house and they like stay, and people, it's a shit show. And they're shocked, and they look at my dad, and he's like, I felt like I needed a drink. She's not suffering. She was sick. I'm happy. She's with her God. He's like, that's what we pray for, is that we go meet our Maker and we sit by his side. Don't we all believe in that? He's like, isn't that what we go to church for our salvation, to go be by the side of Christ? He's like, why are we mourning that? He's like, I'm going to celebrate my mom. She lived a full life. She suffered. She had cancer. I'm glad she's with her Maker. You know, and again, the shock, like everybody's quiet. Like you had to be in the room, you hear a pin drop. They're all like, what is Ike doing? Oh my God. You know, he's lost his mind. Literally, I'm like, and he just starts pouring drinks, handing them to my uncles and my cousins. And he's like, because that's like forbidden, you know what I mean? Like, no. They're drinking, and you know, and he finally says, hey, you know, my cousin was supposed to get married that weekend, and they're like, you know, we don't go. Like, now that family's not going to go. They're mourning. My dad looks at my uncle, and he's like, I'm going to be at so-and-so's wedding. Don't worry, I'm not. And he's like, we can cancel the wedding. I mean, literally, like, he's like, we're not canceling anything. No. That person is gone. They're with their Maker. I'm going to be front and center for him. That's my nephew. I don't care.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, literally, we've canceled weddings. Oh, this person passed away. We can't have a celebration.
Yeah.
So that mentality is, you have to change who you are. You have to grow with the times. You have to do what's best for you. And what's best for you also involves being what's best for everybody around you, that you're accountable for, that you hold yourself accountable for. So everything that I've done in my life, going back to, you know, to wrap this up, every single thing I've told you, my story, where I ended up, how I, you know, moved to the Middle East, how I learned how to appreciate where I came from, the value of America, what it means to me. You know, I appreciate every day I'm in this country. I love being in this country. This is the only country in the world you can come and be something and really have a chance to do it if you choose to.
Right.
My ability to own businesses, my ability to roll from owning restaurants and car lots and, you know, rolling it into real estate and starting and flipping houses and being lucky enough to have people that mentored me, my uncles, my aunts, fellow associates, fellow business partners, the bankers, they all played a role. My friends, my family, they all had a role in my success. My success didn't happen strictly on me. Like I told you before, one hand does not clap by itself. Okay? You got to have a support system. You got to have people that believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. My real estate net worth, the commercial property I have, the rental property I have, the residential property I have, you know, my home, my cars, all that, when you thin it all down, it comes into believing in yourself and achieving your goals on your terms. It didn't take money. It took mindset. It didn't take somebody pushing you down. It took you pushing yourself. Your faith in God, that he's going to guide you in the right direction. The faith of the family that raised you, that knows what cloth or what fiber you're cut from. Okay? Makes you grow. the ability to take a risk and know you're going to be successful at it. Because if you take a risk and you already think you failed before you've done that risk, don't do the risk.
Right.
I already won when I did it. I'm already doing cartwheels. I'm buying businesses that are going under. I got people in my, are you crazy? This place doesn't even make enough to pay the electric. Oh, I already won. I'm cheesing.
Mm-hmm. You already saw it.
I already have my end goal for that thing. Mm-hmm. I already know what I'm going to achieve and how I'm going to achieve it, because I wouldn't have went to go look at it if I already didn't have a somewhat set of a structured plan on how I'm going to get it there and what it's going to take to do it. So make sure you always believe in yourself, believe in everything you do, put your faith in God, and believe in sometimes you're going to walk a path that's not easy to walk, but it's meant for you to walk it. There's a reason for it. And chase your dream always, and everything will follow. Everything always falls into place.
Yes.
I appreciate you having me on.
Of course.
It means a lot. And yeah. I hope this makes a difference in somebody's life.
It definitely will. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.